People who were in a coma. What absolutely blew your mind when you woke up? In the 90s, my great-grandfather had a stroke and was in a coma for 3 weeks. When he woke up, he'd completely forgotten how to speak English. The only language he could speak was Choctaw. He'd learned it as a kid because his family lived near a Choctaw reserve, and he used to play with a bunch of local kids. He was fluent back then, but over the course of his life, he totally forgot it. Like, couldn't remember a single word. That lasted about 10 days. Then one night he woke up from a nightmare and could suddenly speak only English again. No memory of Choctaw at all. Oh, and he could repeat, word for word, every single conversation that had happened in the room while he was in the coma. Dude, the brain is wild. If I remember right, there was a guy who woke up from a coma speaking Cantonese and ended up dating a Chinese girl. I was in a coma for 4 days. When I woke up, everyone was talking about my baby. I'd lost all my long-term memory and had no clue I'd even been pregnant. My son was in the NICU. He was born via C-section at 29 weeks. Turns out it was Crohn's disease. I found that out after waking up. My colon ruptured during the pregnancy. My husband said I talked like a baby at first. When I came to, I was so tired, and for the next few days I was kind of freaked out. I remember one conversation my mom had with a nurse while I was out cold. A couple days later, my long-term memory snapped back, and I remembered everything, like right up through my second surgery. My son was born during the third one. Edit. Yeah. Turns out my baby was the biggest shocker. Is he okay? He was 3 pounds, 4 ounces at birth. Now he's 18 and 6 feet 5 inches. Thanks for asking. I was in a coma for 9 days. When I woke up, I was still on a ventilator. After they took me off it, my body had completely forgotten how to breathe on its own. I literally had to relearn how to breathe. Took me a few days. I had no natural rhythm for how deep or long to inhale, how long to hold, how to exhale. I had to focus every bit of my attention just on breathing. It was creepy as hell. Edit. For everyone asking how I slept, I didn't. First couple of days, if I even dozed off, my oxygen monitor would start screaming and wake me up, and then the nurse would yell at me across the ICU to remember to breathe. I couldn't talk because of the tubes in my nose and throat, but I remember waking up one time to that goddamn beeping, exhausted and pissed. I focused on breathing again, but I was so over it. The nurse came running and started yelling again. I looked at her and mouthed, "I am breathing!" I guess she read my lips and saw the rage because she just threw up her hands and went, all right, good job," and walked off. Just thought I'd share. Never had a chance before. It took about a month before I could breathe normally again. I'm healthy now. Wouldn't say it left any lasting damage. Thanks, now I'm hyper aware of every breath I take. Don't forget to blink. You bastard. You ruined the next 30 minutes of my life. My mom was in a medically induced coma for 3 months. When she woke up, she thought the hospital was trying to kill her. She tried to get out of bed and collapsed so she couldn't walk. She was mostly freaked out that her legs looked weird and shriveled. Had to relearn how to control every single muscle. She couldn't speak clearly or write. When she learned to write again, her handwriting was totally different. She said she hated how perfect her hands looked. Her nails and cuticles were pristine from lack of use. I remember brushing her hair right after she woke up. Most of it had fallen out. She was basically dying every day in that coma. She had sepsis from diverticulitis after a botched surgery. Most of her hair grew back. She eventually walked again, but her brain was damaged. She always looks kind of drunk now, dizzy all the time. But it's been 5 years, and honestly, her recovery is a damn miracle. A close friend of the family was in a coma for 6 months. When he finally came to, he freaked out because his wife looked old. Turns out he'd lost the last 15 years of memory. He remembered having 2 kids, but in his mind, they were still babies. He didn't even know about the third one. The memory never came back. He went from a world with no cell phones to smartphones and laptops. It was like he'd time traveled from the early 90s to the 2000s. But the hardest part for him was realizing he missed his kids growing up. That's the saddest story in this thread. Jesus. That must have felt like some kind of cosmic punishment. My wife was in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. When she woke up, she had a bunch of false memories. All of them were based on things said around her in the hospital. For example, she was convinced she had flown to Washington, D.C. for treatment because while she was under, my dad had talked about a recent work trip there. Her brain somehow twisted it, made it her trip. Even after we explained what really happened, it took days for her to accept it. My brother-in-law had a brain tumor and was out cold for a while after he got to the hospital. The nurses were Asian, so when he woke up, he kept apologizing to everyone for making them come all the way to Japan to see him. My stepdad was in a coma for 3 weeks. When he woke up, he couldn't find his dentures. We'd totally forgotten where we put them, searched for a week. Then, one day, he suddenly collapsed by the hospital sink. Just dropped. They revived him, but no one could figure out why he could barely breathe. Then the doctors sat us down and showed us x-rays. Turns out, the dentures were still in his throat the whole time. They forgot to take them out before intubating him, and it had blocked his airway or something. So, yeah, we found them. I was in a coma for 4 days from bacterial meningitis. When I woke up, I was completely deaf. I had to use pen and paper to talk to my parents and doctors. Eventually, I got some hearing back in my left ear, but my right ear is still 100% deaf to this day. Yo, someone else who had bacterial meningitis. I'm so glad you made it, man. That shit could have ended way worse. Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm glad I pulled through too. Docs gave me a 10% chance of surviving. Edit, just talk to my mom. Turns out the docs told her I had a 5% chance. Holy shit. My wife was in a medically induced coma for 4 days. She had a reaction to contrast dye and her heart stopped for 20 minutes. For nearly 3 months after, she kept talking to her long-dead parents. She'd talk like they were in the next room, or she'd say her daughter or brother had called, but they hadn't. She really believed her mom and dad were still alive. It drove me nuts having to gently correct her multiple times a day. She'd come up with these wild stories about what people were up to. Total fantasy. Creative as hell. But after 3 months, it all started fading. No more confabulations. She can remember recent stuff now, but her long-term memory is mostly gone. I don't even know what that must feel like. She cries sometimes about the things she's lost, but overall, she's doing well. My dad had a bad reaction to contrast dye after a head injury. Had seizures, basically like a hard reboot. All he could say was, "How's the girl?" My sister had just been born. Couldn't grip things, couldn't hold anything. Months of therapy. In the end, his mood changed. Oboso, super irritable, short temper, always sleepy. But now he's fine, just deals with neck pain. About 20 years ago, my cousin had a traumatic brain injury from a fall. He was about 20 at the time. He was in a coma for nearly 4 weeks. When he woke up, he somehow had an eidetic memory. He could repeat any conversation word for word and tell you the exact date and time it happened, could memorize an image in seconds. He still has that memory to this day. It's insanely annoying. Every time he reminds me of something I said years ago, stuff I don't even remember, I tell him we should knock him out again just to see what other superpowers we can unlock. Dude, last time you hit him in the head, he evolved. Next time, he might just start levitating. Nah, he's just glitched. Needs a hard reboot. DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, put me in a coma. I have fuzzy memories of being sick, but my sense of time is just mush. Even years later, I can't piece it all together. I get flashes of doctors coming in and out. When I came out of the coma, I still wasn't all there. On insulin drips, they check your blood sugar hourly. I could never fall asleep, but I felt like I was asleep the whole time. It's hard to explain. Time was just a thick, dragging blur. I was in a coma for almost 6 weeks. When I woke up, I had to relearn everything. Most of my speech was intact, but my hands didn't work right. I had to relearn how to wipe my own ass, how to go up and down stairs. Took about 3 weeks. I also lost a shitload of weight. I'm 6 feet 3 inches and dropped to around 145 pounds. 6 weeks? Jesus Christ, it was still severe head trauma, followed by an MRI with contrast dye. I had a massive allergic reaction. Like, I literally died on the table for a few minutes. My nephew, 14, was in a medically induced coma for over 3 months. Lost about 30% of his body weight, not all his muscle just atrophied. First thing he said when he saw himself was, "You guys forgot to feed me?" Brutal. His whole family had been bawling by his bedside the entire time. I was in a coma for 3 weeks, September 2nd to 26, 2001. I was driving through Pennsylvania on my way to Ithaca to meet with the head of marketing at the company I worked for back then. I don't remember much, only what the doctors and nurses told me. Basically, I got sideswiped or rammed off the road by a drunk driver who tried to cut across 3 lanes to reach an exit. The one I was on, I was in his blind spot and he was wasted. Most people reading this can guess what happened on September 11th, 2001. It felt like time travel. 1 minute I was behind the wheel. Next, I was a bloody mess on a hospital bed. Spinal brace, neck brace, airbag burns, IV in my arm. When I woke up, it was a whole different world. The economy was stable, the world was kind of chill, then I woke up. Chaos. That's all it was. Thanks for watching. If you were ever in a coma, drop your WTF happened when I woke up moment in the comments. And don't forget to check out the rest of our videos.